Thank you for joining us for another episode of Coffee and Something Stronger. My name is Cody Norrid, Skipple's Interim Executive Director. And Coffee and Something Stronger is a coffee chat style interview show where we sit down with academics, practitioners, and faith leaders to talk about the intersections of climate change, environmental justice, and faith. And this morning, we are starting a very special series. So for all of December, we'll actually be talking with fellow Skipple staffers and other staffers and supporters within the Interfaith Power and Light Network to talk about the work that we do, the work that we have done this year, and the work that we want to do going forward. And so that you can get to know some of the individuals in our staff and in our network. This morning also launches our end of year giving campaign, where we are hoping to raise $20,000 to support the work that we do. And today especially, we are on Giving Tuesday. We have a $5,000 match that we are hoping to raise $5,000 for to unlock and meet half of our end of year giving goals today. But more importantly, today we are starting our series with fellow staffer, Skipple Communications Director, Whitney Brown. Whitney, thanks for joining us this morning.
Of course, thank you.
So Whitney, I'll let you say a little bit more about yourself now and how you kind of got to the place where you wanted to come on here at Skipple.
Sure. So I am a grad of Candler School of Theology. I also went to Agnes Scott College for undergrad. And I've always had a sort of passion for the environment and also for marketing. So this kind of blended my two passions together. But while I was at Candler, I had initially intended to get my MDiv and continue on the path of going into counseling and pastoral care. But I stumbled across a couple of sort of eco-theology classes and got really excited about that world. I knew that I didn't want to go into the priesthood or to be clergy, at least for the time being. And so sort of getting to blend together this passion for caring for the planet, marketing, faith, and putting it all together is how I landed at Skipple.
Thanks, Whitney, for sharing that. And for those that don't know, Whitney and I started about the same time at Skipple about 3 years ago. So this is our joint 3-year anniversary that we're on currently. Whitney, I think that you have a reading to share this morning, and so I'll invite you to do that before we dive in.
All right. So one of the classes I took at Candler was called Eco Apocalypse, and which sounds depressing, but was actually really motivating to be more invested in this work than ever. But one of the books that we read was Parable of the Sower, which is written by Octavia Butler, who is an African-American sci-fi writer. And from those books comes this religion of sorts called Earthseed. So what I'm going to read is 2 verses from the Earthseed. The first one is called Nature. There is nothing alien about nature. Nature is all that exists. It's the earth and all that's on it. It's the universe and all that's in it. It's God never at rest. It's you, me, us, them struggling upstream or drifting down. And the second reading is also from the Earthseed religion, and it's called Images of God. Create no images of God, except the images that God has provided. They are everywhere, in everything. God is change, seed to tree, tree to forest, rain to river, river to sea, grub to bees, bees to swarm, from one many, from many one. Forever uniting, growing, dissolving, forever changing, the universe is God's self-portrait.
Thanks for sharing those. What about them kind of stand out to you? What is important about them and what rings true for you?
First, there aren't that many Black sci-fi writers, so I was just sort of excited about this text anyway. But the fact that the book created this own world, this own religion, and then people kind of took off with it, just really excites me. I think it's just fascinating to see, what literature can do. And, there's just this whole philosophy around sort of tending to the earth. And the book talks about what would happen, if we stopped caring for the planet, hence eco-apocalypse. But I just love that these two verses sort of point us to paying attention. And I think that we spend a lot of time just going, even though, even in the midst of a pandemic, we're still just like going and doing all the things. And I think that both of these verses remind you, like, no, nature is here, nature exists. Let's take a moment and pause and take it in and just be thankful for it. And once we're thankful for it, then we understand why we need to care for it and tend to the earth.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you said a little bit in your intro about how you didn't necessarily see yourself following a traditional ministry path.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think all of us in the faith-based nonprofit sector share to some extent. But I wonder if you'd talk a little bit about how you got to that point, why you still decided to move through seminary while that work was important to you, and how you kind of moved through that and got to the place where you're like, I don't really want to do traditional pastoral ministry. I want to do something else.
Sure. So I just have a curiosity about religion in general, and also about philosophy. So going to a school of theology, a seminary, allowed me to explore those things. I waited 10 years to go back to school, so things have changed. And it probably took me at least the first semester just to adjust to being back in school. But when I initially applied to Candler, I was going to go into pastoral care, which in the state of Georgia can look a couple of different ways. But to get licensed in counseling, you have to go through a second degree. And by the time I finished 3 years of seminary, I decided I needed a break from that. And I guess what made me decide to go sort of the non-traditional path is the church that I interned at for 1 year of schooling was a startup. And we're still here. The church I go to is Neighborhood Church in Candler Park. And the goal kind of was to do this outward facing thing, which, when we talk about religion, that's what it should be. We should be facing out to the world, doing good for the world. But I think a lot of times we can get stuck in the four walls of our faith space. And with this, we were able to almost flip the model of church on its head and do work like a nonprofit, but that also had church on Sundays. And so I saw that there is this sort of different form of faith that you can share with folks. And it's more exciting to me to communicate with people and to be in community with them, to do things one-on-one with folks, to organize. That's more exciting to me than, the sermonic moment each week, perhaps, or sticking to a really strict structure each week. So getting to working in nonprofit land that's also faith-based has kind of allowed me to pursue all of my different passions, but nothing is ever the same each day. And I think you know this better than any of us at Skipple. It's a new adventure every day, which keeps us on our toes and keeps things fun.
Yeah. Well, you have also talked about some of your religious history, right? So obviously there's this practical thing that I think you've talked about, which is the excitement of communicating with people, translating that message, getting your hands dirty in a different way than kind of the sermonic moment, I think, as you put it. And what are some of those religious themes that have kind of tugged on you from your tradition or from your kind of religious lineage or upbringing that has influenced your work on environment and here at Skipple?
Sure. So brief history of Whitney's faith journey. I grew up Baptist in Georgia. Never quite felt like it was the right fit for me. but we went every Sunday. And so it was just part of me. So when I got to college, I did sort of the usual, I'm in college, I'm not going to church anymore. Took some time off, and eventually after graduating, started going to an Episcopal church, which I loved. I loved the, as they say, smells and bells. I love liturgy. And so that was a great fit for me. And then when I started seminary, I stumbled upon this startup church, and really got to get my hands in the dirt, for lack of a better term, and sort of see all of the different layers of what makes a faith space. And so now that church is Methodist, and so now I'm at least Methodist on paper, and fully believe in the importance of justice and living out your faith. So Methodism feels like a really good fit for that. But throughout my, just growing up, recycling and caring for, like picking up litter and such was just important to my family. I can remember going on beach trips and choosing to pick up like trash left on the beach. And so it's just something that's like always been inside of me. And as I, grew up and journeyed through these different faith spaces, I got to see sort of different forms of what tending to the earth looks like. And I think that it's great that all of the faith spaces that we work with and all of the ones that I've been in are at so many different levels. So we, some of the places I went to, like if we had a recycling bin, that was a huge plus. Some of the other places, if they were interested in going solar, like that's a huge plus. And so getting to see sort of the vast variety of things that can happen within the sort of eco-theology space pushed me along this journey. And one of the things I love about my current church too is that it is so important that we take creation care up as a top priority and really make that just part of the whole experience. So, yeah.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions about neighborhood church, but before I dive into that, I wanted to kind of reiterate to the people that are tuning in, this month that we'll be kind of highlighting all the great Skipple staffers and connected people like yourself that the support goes to the organization and to support the work that you do. And I wonder if you could give after watching you kind of balance all of the spinning plates over 3 years, if you could give people an insight into what is a day in the life of a communications director here at Skipple, and what does that entail? Because a lot of the times, you are behind the scenes, you're making a lot of things work that wouldn't work without you. And so what does that kind of entail?
Sure. Well, so one of the things right now is doing a live interview and watching Facebook, just to keep things fun. But I think it's important for folks to know that there's just two of us who are full-time, first of all. So it's just me and Cody making a lot of the magic happen. We also have an incredibly supportive board and advisory council, and we have some great part-time staffers that just all of it working together makes the magic happen. But a typical day, I would say, involves a lot of email. I do work on our social media, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you're not following us on any of those yet, all of the handles are Georgia IPL. So go find us out there in the social media verse. What else? I might be making a flyer. I might be connecting with media folks to, announce someone has installed solar. It could be planning our next event, like we're currently working on what the Green Team Summit looks like in a virtual 2021 world. Right now, very focused on fundraising. So all of our communications around fundraising, social media, email, cards. We won't call anyone. But yeah, it's just hectic, and I love it. I'm a person who likes to stay busy, so it's fun. I think that both you and I work pretty long hours, or not long hours, odd hours. I would say.
Great,
so yeah, I mean, like we'll exchange emails at 3:00 in the morning, and then like maybe not again until 2:00 in the afternoon. So
so
you have to do stuff as you as it comes up. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing about two people that are kind of juggling a lot of things back and forth. But I wanted to, you do so much work, kind of the glue in between so many pieces, and it's a basket full of a whole bunch of different things that you're pulling out of that largely has to do with communications and marketing.
Yeah.
And but you hold this Master's of Divinity. You're incredibly qualified in this kind of ability to talk about religion, to do pastoral care, to do all of those things. And how does kind of communicating the work, why is that important to you, and how does that fit into this? I don't know if you would call it a call or not, but this, at least the qualifications to be able to do this ministerial work, how does communications fit in with that?
Sure. I think that it's really easy to tell people why we shouldn't be polluting. Just, in plain English. I think people understand pollution is bad. But what makes Skipple unique and what makes this work feel more like a passion project to me is looking at it through the faith lens. And I think it's easy to sit passively in your faith space as you grow up, especially kids and youth. And you hear, verses or whatever readings, and it just kind of like goes in and it's in there. But this work lets us really dig into some of the various beliefs within different religions around caring for the planet, and gives a lens of hope as well. I think it's hard to see that sometimes in the science that there is hope. So to be able to sort of take scientific reports, take statistics, and communicate them in a way that shows there is hope, there's something that we can do as people of faith. This is what this means based on your religion, your beliefs. And here's why this work is important. So I think that's sort of what makes us, that's what sets us apart from, say, any environmental environmental org in Georgia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we just have, I do think it takes a good deal of studying to have the language around different religions. It's not something you just kind of wake up with one day. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? 2020 has obviously been a challenging year for us and for all of our partners.
Yeah.
But what do you think, from your perspective, has been like a highlight of 2020 that you were like very proud of the work that Skipple was doing? What would you say is like, yep, that was it. We were really doing it well?
Gosh, there's so many. I've just been really amazed that we've been able to almost grow during this time. And I don't say that casually or unmodestly or anything. We went through a leadership transition mid-pandemic, and we didn't start out with a ton of technology to go virtual. And we just sort of took it on as a team and made it happen. So sort of generally thriving programmatically has been really exciting to me. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is getting to offer a virtual form of sacred activism. We need it right now. We need spaces to be vulnerable, spaces to find hope, spaces to just kind of be ourselves. And I feel like by creating that sort of monthly safe space for people, I'm really proud of us doing that. I
Could you talk a little
also,
bit about what sacred activism is and
yeah,
how people can get involved in that?
sure. So sacred activism, not during the pandemic, is a 3-hour or so in-person workshop. And it gives you the opportunity. So it's based in the work of Joanna Macy, which is the work that reconnects and sort of looks at life in this spiral, and how it looks at how we're all interconnected, and we go through sort of these phases. And so doing sacred activism virtually, we've modified it to a 90-minute version, and it lets us engage in the various problems, environmental, social justice, etc., that are happening currently in the world, and sort of come up with ways to combat that, or at least to sit with it for now and explore solutions. Now, whether virtual or not, part of the end goal is to come up with an eco project. So whether that's, there's trees are being cut down in the lot next to us and we want to save those, and like, this is how we're going to do it, to we want to do a class on eco-theology for our youth. Whatever the project is, you sort of work through it during the sacred activism workshop, and then Skipple, thanks to some very kind funders, has the 4 Directions Fund, and we are able to offer grants, seed grants, to assist with this work, ranging from $300 to $500. So anyone that completes a sacred activism workshop is eligible for that. And I just think that that's great. With the 4 Directions Fund, we have expanded it because of the pandemic. So beyond an eco project, we're also covering projects that are directly responding to COVID-19, and any sort of crisis relief, so natural disaster, et cetera. But yeah, it's just, I love it. I'm grateful that I got to do it in person, but I've also done parts of each of them virtually, which has been really nice. It's a great way to get to know people who sort of believe in caring for the earth as well. So it's a nice way to network with folks around Georgia.
It's a great way to build community when we can't meet in person.
It is. And all of them are on our website. So we have a 4 Directions Fund page, and they're each individually on our events page. So just register.
We're having
there.
Once a month pre-scheduled, so just take a look at it, and please register and experience something that's truly beautiful for yourself and for your community. And of course, these seed grants, there's added value there, and there's plenty of seed grants to be given out. So definitely do it and apply.
We have money we want to give y'all. That's a good feeling.
So you mentioned a little bit about the 4 Directions Fund and some of the crisis related things. And I know that something that's been a bit of a passion project for both of us since we came on to Skipple is moving our resources in the direction of environmental justice. And I wonder if you could talk about, what your personal commitment is to that, why it's of interest to you, and why you think it's important to bridge kind of the concerns about climate change with environmental justice.
Sure. So it's privileged for us to be able to think about us, universal us, not you and I, but to be able to think about caring for the planet and not caring for our neighbors. Creation care, earth care, whatever term you want to use for it, has to embody people and planet. And what environmental justice does is sort of shine a light on the injustices that people are experiencing. The pandemic has really brought forward a lot of those injustices, especially when we look at energy equity across the US, especially in Georgia, but across the US, truly. So you can't look at one without the other, I would say. And it's just important to me because it's almost like this is the next level. So, okay, you got in, you open the gateway, you understand that like the environment is important. You understand that we get food from the environment, so we should care for it. Now what? Well, now we need to make sure that, maybe your faith space has clean running water and an upgraded building, but your neighbors down the road, they're in need of a new roof, and it's affecting all levels of their ability to worship, and therefore do any other projects beyond the walls of the church. So I think environmental justice acknowledges that there are inequities across the state, and that is part of loving your neighbor, caring for your neighbor, not leaving anyone on the side or to fail or anything. Yeah, creation care involves supporting all levels of the planet.
Yeah, you can't love God and creation without caring for neighbor.
Exactly.
And caring for neighbor is wrapped up in
Yeah,
environmental injustices across the state and across the nation.
exactly.
You also have done a lot of work, both at Candler and outside of Candler, in the mental health pastoral care world. And I wonder if you talk a little bit about that, but also how it maps onto your work here at Skipple, and how it, there are all sorts of intersections with environmental work and mental health and pastoral care. And I wonder if you could tease some of those out for people who might not make those connections on their own.
Sure. Well, so I think that's one of the reasons that I love sacred activism so much, is it's like our one little piece of pastoral care that we offer through Skipple. And I think it's great. Just giving people safe spaces to process everything that's going on in the world. So I studied psychology in undergrad. I thought I was going to go on to do therapy. And then I thought I would go into the arts and had a foray in theater for a little while. But then things just kept calling me back to caring for people and working with people one-on-one. So it felt like sort of a natural plan to go to seminary and pursue this pastoral care piece. And I probably took all of the pastoral care classes that Candler had to offer. But it's understanding humans allows you to have compassion, and compassion is a big part of justice. And so we can't do environmental justice without sort of the pastoral care piece. I think this is hard work. And so to be able to offer a shoulder to lean on to someone who really wants to do X, Y, and Z project, but they just can't afford it, or the congregation just doesn't see it as a priority. It's just so important for us to be able to, like I said, have compassion for each other. I would love to continue pursuing just knowledge around care and pastoral care, and see more ways that we can add it in. But I think that all of these things are sort of intertwined with each other. We have injustices because people are treated differently, and that affects physical and mental health.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to let the note of the musical theater get away from us. And something that several guests and I've talked about on the show, as you know, is how creativity intersects with our work. So, we're not a big fossil fuel company. We don't have billions of dollars to put into grassroots infrastructure or these kind of other justice initiatives that we want to see. But instead, by and large, one of the things that we have is creativity. It's what we can harness. I think it's, creativity is a holy work. It is one of the best tools in the bag that we have. And I wonder, if and how that sort of creativity continues in your work, and how you see that coming out, both kind of in your communications and marketing work specifically, but also in the ethos of why you do the work.
Sure. I do love musical theater. When I worked in a theater, I was the marketing director. So let's not confuse anyone. Not a performer. But we have to be creative in our messaging. Otherwise, everything just comes out the same as the next person. We have to be creative when the pandemic hit. And I think that's what kept all of us going at Skipple, instead of, not folding under the pressure, but just not doing any programming. Instead, we started a new program. I should have said this when you asked what I was really proud of us doing, but Coffee and Something Stronger. We kicked this off during the pandemic, and I think this has just been fantastic to get to hear so many different voices. But creativity just has to take the lead on everything we're doing. We're not a lab. We're not doing scientific research. We are the messengers. We're not the researchers. And so, yeah, we have to stay creative. I'm looking at your bookshelf behind you, and, yeah. Well, I think that's one of the ways that we stay creative too, is you and I both sort of have this ongoing reading list, just to keep ourselves fresh. And if only I could find a way to do a musical about environmental justice. Maybe that's coming 2021.
I was going to say, yeah, if we meet our Giving Tuesday goal, we might force somebody to do a musical performance.
All right. Yes. I'll say that. No, reiterate it. If we hit $5,000 by noon, Cody and I will do a musical theater performance.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you heard it here first, I guess. I'm doing a thing. What are you, we're kind of getting towards the end of the time, but I want to ask a couple of more questions. And specifically, what are you excited about for 2021? What's coming that you think, you're excited about, or themes that you're excited about that Skipple is getting into now?
I feel like this year has really solidified the importance of environmental justice in our work. I wouldn't say that it's not something we addressed before, but I think this year we made it more explicitly a piece of our work. So I'm excited to expand and grow that piece. And I hope that it allows us to diversify our reach in terms of faiths, races, SES, et cetera. So I'm really looking forward to growing just what we're able to do in 2021. I'm excited to take programs like the Green Team Summit and look at new ways to present them. One of the sort of curses and blessings of the pandemic is having to go virtual, but that removed the barrier of people having to travel. So now we have people at our events from, the coast all the way up to the mountains. And I think we've even had some out-of-state folks join in, which is great. Because we all see the importance of this work, but I'm just excited to see where we go from here, to see us grow. I feel like administratively, our board is really invested in the work. And so I'm excited to sort of engage them in different ways. And, you might see some more board members teaching classes, all sorts of.
Might see some interviews with some board members soon on Coffee and Something Stronger.
Absolutely. But yeah, just sort of getting the Skipple name out there beyond the Metro Atlanta area. One of the ways that is really exciting is that we hired a coastal engagement associate. And so now we have a dedicated person on the coast. Yay. Which we could not have done without support from all of you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that's great. Yeah. So for everybody, we'll be actually interviewing our coastal engagement associate, Hermina Glass-Hill, next week on Coffee and Something Stronger. So you can get to know her. She just came on board the week before Thanksgiving. So that'll be really exciting to have a conversation with her.
Yeah.
And to close out our time, Whitney, I'll ask you the same question that I ask everybody else, which is, what are you missing the most in this COVID-19 world? And what has given you the hope to keep doing the important work that you're doing?
I am missing human interaction without worrying that I need to get a COVID test. If I'm being completely honest. I don't necessarily miss large gatherings, but I miss being able to, sit around a bonfire when it's chilly like this, with friends, and get to, hug people and hug their kids. And so, one day when it's safe again, we'll just have a giant street party and hug everyone.
Yeah.
I hope that's what's coming. And what gives me hope is, in terms of Earth Care, it's looking at some of the different statistics that have come out and seeing carbon footprint could be reducing. Your pollution could be reducing. Now, we have to learn how to keep these things in place post-COVID. We're not going to be in lockdown forever. Or working from home or whatever. But yeah, I just have hope in seeing that, it is possible for us to start healing the earth. And it keeps me going. It makes me want to just find new ways to share share resources with people and get other folks fired up about this work.
Yeah. Well, Whitney, thank you so much for taking some time to come on the show. And I know how busy you are. So thank you for taking some time.
Absolutely. This has been great.
Everybody who's tuning in, thank you also for tuning in, supporting Coffee and Something Stronger this year as we brought it on. And thank you for investing in Whitney's work and investing in Skipple's work. There is a link to contribute to our end of year giving campaign in this video. So please click that if you can.
That I'm typing right now.
And support us, because we truly couldn't do the work that we do without your support. And Whitney could not do all the things that she does without your support. So thank you in advance for that. And as I said, next week we'll be interviewing Hermina Glass-Hill, our new Coastal Engagement Associate. It's going to be a great conversation. And I will close out with a poem that we are using for our end of year campaign. This is an excerpt from Joy Harjo's Remember. It reads, "Remember the earth whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth, we are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them. Listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all people, and all people are you. Remember you are this universe, and the universe is you." It's Remember by Joy Harjo. Thank you all for tuning in.